Hello friends, this is Adam with Movie Guide 365, and in today's video, I'm going to go over the worst 4K discs released in 2023. Here we are, the end of another year, so it's time to break out the best of and worst of lists. And for this video, I will be going over the 4K discs that were the worst releases of 2023. Now, when I say worst releases, it can mean any number of things, whether it is technical issues with the disc itself, bad transfers, or just substandard or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things that qualify as the worst in any particular year. So for this video, I will be focusing on the ones that I came across in 2023. And as always, I encourage you to do the same in the comments section below. Before I begin this list, I just want to make a quick note. I talked about technical issues, which can happen on 4K releases. And I will not be covering titles that were released this past year that have had technical issues, but have since been made good by the studio or label with replacement discs. For example, Universal's 4K release of Promising Young Woman was supposed to include an Atmos track. It did not, and Universal made good with replacements. And also the Criterion Collection's 4K release of The Princess Bride is another example, where if you watch the film in Dolby Vision on certain 4K players, it was prone to glitching and artifacting. And they also made good with replacements recently. So those two titles will not be included in this list and others like it. When you make a worst of list, of course, for at least 4K discs, it not only could include technical issues, as I just got done talking about, or bad transfers, but also omission. And what I mean omission is something not included on the 4K disc where it is included elsewhere in either digital, streaming, or even the Blu-ray copy. I think that has actually been known to happen from time to time. So for my number 8, I'm going to go with Lionsgate's 4K release of Sisu. Don't get me wrong, the transfer of this is excellent. It's really gritty and raw, but it's very clean. And I have no complaints whatsoever visually. And to be fair, the DTS 5.1 audio is pretty hard hitting. But where audiophiles rightfully get their, I would say, anger is going to be the lack of the Dolby Atmos, which is included on the digital copy. I don't know why this decision was made. Somebody could argue that it's a digital exclusive, but it should say that somewhere or indicated, but it's not. It feels like it was just purposely left off, and I don't know why that decision was made. The movie's really good. Once again, it's a good 4K disc, but for audiophiles, there is definitely something missing. And to a degree, I feel my number 7 pick is a little bit worse of an offender because of the subject matter. Paramount's release of Devotion on 4K is suspiciously missing a Dolby Atmos, once again included over on the digital version. This movie is about planes, dogfighting, air strikes, that kind of thing. It's war. You need that extra additional real estate above you to really hammer home what you get audibly. And the fact that it is just not even here, I was very surprised by that. It's a movie that demands some extra audio presence, and it's just missing. Once again, the 5.1, just like Sisu, is okay. It's good, but I feel it could have been so much better. For whatever reason that Paramount decided not to include it on this 4K disc, it's absolutely missing and it should have been on it. With the huge amount of 4K titles released in any given year, it's understandable to a degree that some technical issues can happen on the discs. And when I'm talking about that are audio issues or transfer problems. It happens. I talked about it just a few moments ago, but really, I think what's a little bit more important is how the label or studio respond to such technical issues. In a perfect world, we all get replacements and everything's made right, no problem. But when you have a particular label that not only ignores the problem, but has a history of doing so with their 4K releases, that speaks a lot more to me. And for this example, I'm talking about Night of the Demons on 4K from Shout Factory. Unfortunately, for those that are unaware, the Shout Factory disc has some problems with the audio. Both the stereo tracks included on the 4K disc are reversed, and the 5.1 is also a little bit problematic. I covered this in my short review about the 5.1. It appears to have some kind of constant base layer of LFE active, which can be a little bit distracting. And also the 5.1 appears to be sourced from a 2.0 as it is. So The unfortunate circumstances of the audio here are just a little bit too much to ignore, and Shout Factory's reluctance to even acknowledge something is a problem is something that really is kind of what's on the spotlight here. So yes, Shout Factory, unfortunately, is not overly reliable when it comes to replacement discs, so that is why Night of the Demons is my number 6 pick. Earlier this year, the first 4 Rocky films were released on the 4K format in both a collection and as individual Best Buy steelbooks, but unfortunately there were some issues with a few of the titles. Rocky 1 seemed to be the most flawless of the bunch. It looks really good. I actually scored it very high in my review. And Rocky 2, unfortunately, there is an audio pitch issue, which is mixed about 4% lower. The same can be said for Rocky 3, but with the alternate language tracks. The normal English track appears to be unaffected. And for Rocky 4, there's a slight framing issue, which a couple scenes look a little bit, they're framed a little bit differently. I talk about all this stuff in my various 4K reviews if you really want to go and check out those particular videos. And once again, this is another label or studio that didn't really acknowledge there was a problem to begin with. Now for the pitch issue on Rocky 2 and the alternate tracks on Rocky 3, apparently the prevailing theory is that the audio was mixed from the PAL versions of the film, which would account for the 4% lower pitch. Unfortunately, once again, there's no fix or replacement program that has been acknowledged. And to be fair, it also looks like the digital version of these films are affected as well. And Rocky 4's framing issue is just going to have to remain that. It's very unfortunate that these were kind of, affected multiple titles that were released at the same time. But I really think that one day these need to be fixed. I don't know if that will ever happen. MGM holds the rights for these, so I don't know. It's just one of those things that, hey, they're just going to go ahead and throw these titles on 4K, call it a day, and it just really stinks that this is a problem at all. But yes, Rockies 2, 3, and 4, unfortunately, will make the list. If you're a longtime 4K collector and you hear the name Paramount, you're kind of feeling a little bit dread that any kind of 4K release is going to be marked with the unfortunate use of DNR. They are probably one of the most egregious users of DNR in any studio. And unfortunately for the 4K release of The Core, this one just is a smeary, waxy mess from start to finish. Visually, this movie should pop. It should look really good. It should have that nice, crisp detail, and it's just not there. It is just gone. It's smoothed out just excessively. It's not the worst offender on this list, believe me. We're going to get to that one very shortly. But I don't know. It's a cheesy B-movie action film, but it should still be given the proper respect if it's given a 4K transfer at all. I really was kind of hoping for a lot more. It's just one of those unfortunate DNR messes, but it is something that had to be added to this list. And number 3 is a title that unfortunately has to make the list just due to a substandard and sometimes downright bad looking transfer. Director Scott Derrickson's The Black Phone on 4K, released by Universal, is just one of the worst of the year. Now, what makes this one weird to me is over internationally, there's a 4K release from Turbine that at least added the Dolby Vision, but they appear to have made some tweaks as well, and supposedly it's a lot better. I am trying to get my hands on a 4K copy of that version to do a real comparison, but if you're here in the States, you unfortunately just do not have a good looking 4K. It's something where the movie is inherently dark, and those black levels are just crushed all to everything. I mean, they don't look good at all. There's a lot of compression. The disc is encoded very poorly, and it's also one of those that was released as a mod title from Universal. So that's going to attach some stigma to it, which is just, I don't know whether it's fair or not, but it is what it is. But yes, the US release of The Black Phone does not look good. It's just bad, and it's easily one of the worst of the year. And I don't know, we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get the Turbine and everything will be better. At number 2, it's a fairly recent release, and it's one that when I popped it in, unfortunately, I was, to put it mildly, devastated what we got here, because I love the film a lot and it just deserves so much better. Once again, another Universal mod title, Love Actually. The 4K is just not a good looking transfer. I will say there are a few saving graces. The HDR grading is pretty solid. It does accentuate the colors a bit. And the new Dolby Atmos track, I think it does open up the soundstage, to an appreciable degree. but the general encoding on this disc is just piss poor. It is bad. It's like somebody just up-resed a standard def image with no in between. You know, it's just bad. It's terrible. It's just one of those rare cases where if you pop in the Blu-ray and do an A/B comparison, it's not even close. The Blu-ray is a lot more visually pleasing than what we got here on the 4K. Once again, this bums me out probably than most movies, you know, on this list, but I wish this one got a lot better treatment, and the 4K is not the way to go. And for the worst 4K disc released in 2023, I think everybody knows what it is and probably agrees with me. American Graffiti is absolutely the worst of the year. Now, this is another Universal title, which I'm not even going to blame Universal for this transfer. I think this one purely goes to George Lucas, his constant tinkering with his films, and the heaviest use of DNR I think I've ever seen, even more so than Terminator 2. This just looks bad. This is probably the most artificial looking 4K I've seen all year, and that includes any animated films I have seen. It just looks terrible. It is not a good looking picture. It is so excessively DNR'd and smoothed out that everybody just looks extremely waxy. All that fine detail is pretty much scrubbed away, and it just looks strange. It's odd. This is a film that has gotten progressively worse on home format since DVD. DVD was probably the best it's ever going to look, and the 4K the worst. It's just a very unfortunate that some filmmakers can't just leave well enough alone. But American Graffiti is just got to be the worst of the year. I don't know what more to say, everybody, but I would actively avoid this one. Do not pick it up. Stick with your Blu-ray if you have to. But yeah, that is my number one of the year as far as worst 4K discs go. So that is my list of the worst 4K discs released in 2023. Now it's your turn in the comments section to let me know what your own personal worst 4K list is of this past year. Let's talk about it down below. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. So until next time, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. I will see you at the movies.